Welcome to Spurs Focus, your go-to spot for daily Tottenham news, transfers, and match updates. Don't forget to support the channel by hitting that subscribe button now. Let's dive into today's top story. Tottenham have been dealt a big transfer blow as top target Morgan Gibbs-White signs a new deal with Nottingham Forest, ending all hope of a summer move to North London. But Spurs aren't done yet with Gibbs-White off the table. All eyes are now on Crystal Palace star Eberechi Eze, who has a £67.5 million release clause and is reportedly open to a move. Arsenal may be favourites, but with their spending already near £200 million, could Spurs swoop in and hijack the deal? Let's break down what's next for Ange Postecoglou's side and how Eze could transform their attack. Tottenham face a monumental transfer decision after top target Morgan Gibbs-White ended speculation surrounding his future by signing a new contract at Nottingham Forest. Almost immediately after wrapping up a deal to sign Mohamed Kudus from West Ham United, attention turned onto Gibbs-White with a medical at Hotspur Way arranged just hours after contact was made. However, Forest were of the belief an illegal approach had been made and that heavily delayed any switch going ahead. The 25-year-old, meanwhile, showed up for the start of pre-season and featured in friendlies against Chesterfield, Monaco and Fulham. Following the conclusion of a 3-1 defeat to the latter, Forest confirmed he had penned a record deal, keeping him at the club until the summer of 2028. Though it was only for an extra 12 months, it is almost guaranteed that his weekly wage has been increased, and if a release clause has been included, it will be for much more than £60 million. Despite seemingly wasting 2 weeks trying to sign him, the Lilywhites cannot afford to dwell on that failed transfer and simply have to complete a signing while on their pre-season tour in Asia with a 30-man travelling squad now confirmed and several injury updates provided. With a significant amount committed to trying to bring in Gibbs-White, supporters will undoubtedly now want a big signing to be made. A new defensive midfielder is one of many priorities, but a marquee addition, similar to the Forest star, is available for just a little bit more in Crystal Palace's Eberechi Eze. The England international has a £67.5 million release clause in his contract and is seemingly primed for a move away from Selhurst Park. At the start of July, Football London reported it was highly unlikely that Spurs would try to sign Eze. However, that stance may now have to change. Unfortunately, in that time, North London rivals Arsenal have communicated their desire to sign Eze, with the player also keen on the switch. However, having spent just under £200 million in the last 3 weeks, the Gunners are focused on outgoings. Unless some significant funds are raised, it is entirely possible that Arsenal cannot afford to sign him, and therefore Spurs could swoop in and hijack that planned transfer. Eze would bring a new dimension to Spurs' attack, and as they can also offer Champions League football, it seems likely Eze would be open to the move. A guarantee of more minutes could also be provided with Martin Odegaard and Declan Rice in his preferred role at Emirates Stadium. Tottenham fans, get ready for something very unusual. This Saturday, Spurs will play 2 matches on the same day, taking on Wycombe Wanderers behind closed doors before facing Luton Town at Kenilworth Road. That means manager Thomas Frank has the rare challenge of selecting 2 starting X is from a mix of 32 senior players and academy stars. With Richarlison building back fitness, James Maddison back in training, and some U21 Euro stars returning, here's how Spurs plan to manage this double-header and our prediction for the 2 starting lineups. Thomas Frank faces the unusual prospect of picking 2 Tottenham teams for 2 different matches on the same day. Spurs face a double-header of friendlies on Saturday as they take on Wycombe Wanderers and then Luton Town. The behind-closed-doors match against Wycombe was added at late notice to the schedule and kicks off at 11 AM. 4 hours later, Spurs will kick off their previously scheduled friendly at Kenilworth Road against another League One outfit in Luton, who could feature former Tottenham goalkeeper Josh Keeley after his £1 million move last week. Frank will be in charge of both games on Saturday and must select 2 matchday squads from the 32 senior players potentially fit and available, as well as using plenty of the under-21s development squad. We wanted an extra game in our schedule to give as many players as many match minutes as possible, in order to put them in the best position. Physically, said the Dane, we will play 2 even, strong teams, and they will play between 60 and 75 minutes. maybe more. By the end of Saturday, 22 players will have played a lot of match minutes, and they will be in a very good place before we go on tour. Manus Solomon is unlikely to be fit after suffering a calf injury in training, while Dejan Kulusevski, Radu Dragusin and Brian Gill remain out after their different knee injuries and subsequent surgeries. However, James Maddison has returned to full training with the squad, and Kota Takai was expected to return to training this week following a small training ground knock. Richarlison missed last weekend's win at Reading, but Frank said afterwards, "Richie has trained well. We're just building him. That's the big thing." He trained earlier today, and we expect a full training week next week, and right now, we expect him to play next week. The trio of Archie Gray, Matthijs Tel and Wilson Odobert, who were granted extra time off after their exploits at the U21 European Championships, should also be back in contention. Yes, we know it's near impossible to guess two teams on one day in pre-season, but here are our attempts at predicting the two Spurs starting lineups Frank could put out, as he takes the chance to look at some different combinations. Son Heung-min faces a crossroads at Tottenham Hotspur this summer as he closes in on the final 11 months of his contract at the North London club. The South Korean star turned 33 earlier this month, and he has seen it all while at Spurs. Son went from wanting to leave the club just 1 year in, before being convinced by Mauricio Pochettino to stay, to then forming a lethal partnership with Harry Kane. Then came the despair of the 2019 Champions League final, a Puskas award-winning solo goal, the Premier League Golden Boot, and then finally 2 months ago becoming the first captain to lift a European trophy at Tottenham in 41 years. Son is a legend at the club. Even the modest skipper admitted himself on that May evening in Bilbao that he could be considered one, but for one night only if the rest of the team were as well. He has notched up 173 goals and 101 assists in 454 matches for Spurs, and 204 goal involvements in 333 matches in the Premier League alone. He is one of the most recognisable names in the competition. Now, though his future remains clouded, Football London reported on MLS interest for Son early last month with his former Spurs teammate Hugo Lloris at LAFC, and now the Los Angeles side are reportedly trying to put together a move for him. With Saudi Pro League clubs also interested, those inside Tottenham maintain they have received no bids at this time for their captain. Son is more open to a Spurs exit than he has been since that first summer after joining from Bayer Leverkusen. Those who worked with him last season got the sense that he was preparing himself for a potential Tottenham departure, and the Europa League triumph was the perfect icing on the cake to secure his decade-long legacy at the club. It ended a season in which Son struggled to find any rhythm with hamstring and foot injuries, and ended up with just 7 goals in the Premier League, his lowest total since the season he arrived at the club all the way back in 2015. Yet he still finished it by doing something so few Spurs captains before him were able to. Spurs took up the option on Son's contract in January to ensure he was not a free agent this summer. While the club will be guided by what the South Korean star wants to do, that extra 11 months ensures they are unlikely to lose him for nothing unless he sees out his final season with another go at the Champions League. It's worth noting, though, that Lloris did end up remaining at Tottenham in his final season for another 6 months before departing for Los Angeles on a free transfer in the January window. That the MLS regular season runs from late February until October makes it somewhat awkward for summer signings, and next season's campaign will be interrupted by the World Cup. Major League Soccer could be a good fit for Son on every level. It would give him a growing stage to star on, alongside Lionel Messi at Inter Miami, and LA has the biggest Korean population in the USA. New Tottenham head coach Thomas Frank has not been able to confirm that Son will be staying for his first season in charge. In fact, he went as far as admitting that he has not even made a final decision on who his captain will be for this season. Hardly a ringing endorsement for the current skipper. When asked whether Son should be able to dictate his own future, the Dane said, "It's always tricky, situations like that. If that happens, right now I have a player that is fully committed and training well, and will play tomorrow. If a player has been at a club a long time, then there will always be a decision for the club to take, of course. And of course, the head coach and the guys who are in charge, and this case will be with Daniel Levy and Johan Lang. Because there is something in it if someone wants to leave at a certain stage, then there can be something there. But the club will always decide in the end, of course. If Son does remain at the club, then Frank will have to decide how to use him best. The debate has always raged over whether he's better through the middle or down the left flank cutting in. Ange Postecoglou's system needed him to remain wide and hit the touchline, and it never looked like an entirely comfortable fit. Jose Mourinho got the best out of Son in his prime, using him as a runner beyond Kane, as the England captain dropped deep and picked out his teammates' runs. In his first match for Frank at Reading last Saturday, Son looked to be kept out wide on the left as he did under Postecoglou, and although he won the 2 corners that led to the goals for Spurs, he never looked right, and after the game appeared to be suffering from a back problem. This Saturday brings matches against Wycombe and Luton, with Son set to play in one of them if fit, either at the training ground or at Kenilworth Road. Then comes the club's latest summer tour across the world. After that tour, there awaits a potential reunion with Kane in Munich, before a chance to win another piece of silverware with the UEFA Super Cup against PSG and Udine. By then we should have a clearer idea of what comes next for Son, because Frank is keen to avoid a repeat of what happened to his predecessor Postecoglou when Kane left just days before the start of the Premier League season in 2023. Ultimately, Son should decide what comes next. He's given everything to Tottenham for 10 years and managed to complete that decade with the rarest of things at the club in the modern era silverware. He would have left a legend regardless.